Hey, my friends, this is Bill McDonald, the Common Sense Math Doctor. This video is for those of you that are struggling to teach your kids the concept of angles, the measurement of the angles, and the difference between angles and rays. So if I say rays, that's plural, more than one. If I say ray, that's singular. So if the sun has rays coming out, they're just basically imaginary lines that go to every point that it can reach in its sight, so to speak. So there's a saying that says, it takes two to tango. All right. So if my fingers were to continue until they actually join down here a little lower, it also takes two to angle. So if I have one ray, you might say, I don't have an angle. I just have a line that has an arrow at the end of it pointing to infinity and beyond. But if I can remember the saying, if it takes two to tango, it also takes two to angle, that you need two rays to form an angle. And the question that I'm going to be sharing with you is similar to one that kids get wrong all the time. They need to understand that the measurement of an angle, regardless of where it might be on a protractor, from 0 this way all the way to 180, where it's an open angle like this, or if it's the opposite, from 0 all the way to 180. It's real important for your kids to remember that an angle has a measurement, which is the amount of degrees that separate the two rays from each other at their open point on a protractor. And every protractor has a top number and a bottom number, depending on if you're going from left to right or right to left. So because the measurement of an angle that we're going to look at is close to 90 degrees, you might have to teach your kids a little bit of what I call karate math, where I say, as soon as I say right angle, your kids can respond with, huh, right angle, huh, 90 degrees, huh. These are two perpendicular lines. Now, if we're talking about angles, it could be on a two-dimensional shape. But in the case of a protractor, the lines go on and on forever. So let's take a look and see the question that so many kids struggle with. And it's not actually the question, but it's a question like the one. It came from number 12 in the 4th grade 2021 test. Only 45%, less than half of the kids in the entire state got it correct. For those of you in Texas, look at 4.7D readiness, reporting category 3. Outside of Texas, just look up your skill that talks about rays, angles, measurements. So the given information, the problem with a period, is different than the question, which doesn't always have a question mark. Okay, so this is not going to be guess and check, because there's actual given information in the problem on the protractor. So there's my little saying, it takes two to tango, and it also takes two to angle. Kind of corny, but I think sometimes corny works. So it says ray, one line, AD, there it is, starts, we'll call it at the sun and goes on forever. And if you look at it closely, it's either going to be 65, exactly between 60 and 70, or we're going from right to left, 115. So what we have to check is, well, what do they want to know? Well, usually they want to take that ray that goes through that exact point on the protractor and make an angle. And they gave you 4 choices. Well, let's go look down here at the rest of the information. To construct an angle that has a measure of 95 degrees. So remember, if 90 degrees is a right angle, and it forms perpendicular lines, we have to find the one that's closest to 90 degrees. And because 95 degrees is only 5 degrees difference. And I went ahead, just for the benefit of you and your students, I went ahead and drew the correct one out. So you can see that if you were to place that parallel with the edge of your table like I'm doing, you're going to see that, okay, well, 90 degrees, it goes back from, this being at where 0 could be, it just barely goes past 90. So what I recommend that you do is make a T-chart and do subtraction. What is the difference in an angle? Well, you take the point that one of them goes through, and this is going to have to be in all 4 subtraction problems. And so if this number happens to be the smaller one, then you subtract this one from the other one, but you always must take the top one and subtract the bottom one, or subtract it from, sorry, subtract the other top ones with the bigger number on top. Or if you're going to use the bottom number to check, it's the same exact point that it goes through. But if you take the bottom one, you do the same thing and say, okay, if this number is bigger, I will subtract the other number that's on the bottom. If this number is smaller, I will subtract it from the other number. So that might be a little bit hard to explain without showing you. So the first section, our T-chart says letter A, point B. And I think it's always crucial that you have your kids put the letter and the word point and the letter it's talking about, because in some cases they might give you a letter, one of the letters might be the same as one of the points, as in here. Point B is different than letter choice B. So I intentionally threw that in there to distract your kids. One of the ways that most kids get it wrong, instead of actually looking for the measure of 95 degrees just past 90, they want to just look for a ray that goes through 95 degrees. And so make sure you do a TMI, a teachable moment of instruction, or if too many kids are misunderstanding, like half of Texas in this case, half of your state, wherever you're at, they need to understand that when they're asking for the measurement, they're wanting to know what is the degrees of separation from when the 2 rays go through the protractor. So point B, there it is right there. We have a 30, and on the top, we're going to compare it to 65. So like I said, the bigger number goes on top. Subtract 30 from 65, you get 35 degrees. I can already eliminate letter A because we're looking for a measurement of 95 degrees, not 35 degrees, but it's probably better to practice. Bottom number minus the bottom number, Which one's bigger? The 150 minus 115 is going to equal 35, and it's going to be the same. Why do I have you do it both ways? Because in case you subtract wrong, you might get the wrong answer in one and the correct answer in the other one, and the answer should be the same. When you do the difference, you subtract, you should be able to get the same difference on both numbers, the top and the bottom, where the rays passing through. Letter B says check point E. There it is, 120 on the top, 60 on the bottom, compared to how much more you subtract, how much difference, what is the difference? 120 minus 65 equals 55 degrees, so I can already eliminate that. Or subtract 60 from 115, or 115 minus 60, 55 degrees. Eliminate letter B. Letter C, point F, 140 on the top, 40 degrees on the bottom is the point that it passes. The point that the point passes through is where the ray is. That's not the angle. The angle is when you compare it to the other ray that was already given. So which one's bigger on these two on the top? The 140. So letter C, 140 minus 65 is 75 degrees. Or subtract 65 from 140, same thing, say it both ways in case your kids get asked in words about subtraction. Again, we're going to eliminate because we're looking for a measurement of 95 degrees. Subtract 40 from 115. Where did I get those? The bottom number subtracted from the bottom number. Why did I circle that one? To make sure that is the one that we're focused on each time. We're wanting to go through letter A, letter D, and one of the other points to form an angle. And it takes two to angle, two rays. Finally, the last one, it's got to be the right one. We're going to look at D, point C. There is point C. It's 160 on the top when you're going from right to left. And it's 20 degrees on the bottom when we're going from, right to left on this one. And this one here, the top one is from left to right. So when we do both, it's 160 minus, and I would take away points from myself for not showing the subtraction sign, 160 minus 65. 0, take away 5, you can't do it. So we're going to borrow from the 6. And sometimes to make things easier, I see 16 tens. That's what that really is. If I take away 1 10 from 16, I have 15 tens left. That's where I can get that 10 from, to borrow 10 ones. 10 minus 5 is 5. 15 minus 6 is 9. When you subtract and regroup again, 95 is the measure that we were looking for. So if we check the other one, it should be, we have 115 and 20. Which one, the bottom, between the two bottom numbers, which one's bigger? The 115. So we'll put that on the top. 115 minus 20 is 95 degrees, or subtract 20 from 115 is 95 degrees. So the answer is going to be letter D. Will construct a measure of 95 degrees by drawing another ray that starts at point A and passes through point C. And once again, I did it twice. Point C is different than letter C, and point B is different than letter B. And I'm just afraid that they're going to throw something like that at your kids to make sure they differentiate between the letter and, like I did here, the point. So we're going to choose letter D. I'll mark it again. And so when your kids go to their computer, regardless of what program you're using, if you're doing it with paper or on computer, from my understanding in Texas. 13D in the book will be 13D in the Scantron. 14 would be FGHJ if you're working on paper, or continue to be ABCD if you're working on computer starting next year. So that's not the way, but it's a way. And people will have already asked me, like, why are you sharing strategies with us for free in a lot of cases? I said, well, this is from my fourth grade math surgery based on the 13 most difficult questions on the 2021 fourth grade math test and the 10 most difficult questions from the 2019 test. And as I've mentioned in a couple other videos, I have them in both multiple choice and open-ended format. I'm not going to focus on the open-ended right now because we're still living a multiple choice world for this year. Now, if you're a teacher who's taking the field test next month, this will be a great practice test because I've done it for both third and fourth grade. And I'm going to continue to do that so that all grade levels can practice in open-ended, short constructed response, because starting next year, there's going to be between 7, 8, or 9 questions that are worth 1 point and a couple of questions that will be worth 2 points. So there's a way, not the way. Take a moment to like the video on YouTube, like it on Facebook as well if you get a chance, share or tag one of your third, fourth, or fifth grade math teacher friends, anybody who has students who are struggling with raise versus angle. So the theme of today is, hey, Ray, what do you say? I say that it takes two to tango, but it also takes two rays to angle. Morning, but it works. You guys take care. Have a blessed evening.